The memorial had finally been built. The forgotten children had finally been remembered. And Emily, the child who had waited decades to be remembered, was finally gone. For Adrian, the case was finally over. At least, that was what he believed. Across the front, 3 words had been written. You forgot them. Inside was a photograph Adrian had never seen before. It showed the underground shelter and 11 children standing inside it. Emily was among them. But Adrian had only found evidence connected to 6 children. Then, he turned the photograph over. Adrian took the photograph to Dr. Samuel Pierce. Pierce recognized the shelter immediately, but then he noticed something Adrian hadn't. The photograph had been taken years after the shelter was supposedly abandoned. Someone had reopened the shelter. Adrian returned to the town archives. He found something strange in the old utility records. The shelter had officially been closed, but its electricity never stopped. Someone had secretly kept the forgotten building alive. Emily's story had never been the whole story. Then Adrian found a file hidden inside an old municipal cabinet. There were no names inside, only numbers. At the top of the file was a name, the Nightingale Program. Adrian finally understood. The children hadn't simply been hidden. They had been studied. The shelter had secretly become an illegal facility. The children were chosen because their identities could be erased without immediate suspicion. Inside the shelter, they were given numbers instead of names. The people behind the program wanted to understand what fear, isolation, and separation could do to a child's memory. But Emily remembered. She remembered her real name. She remembered her family, and she remembered the other children. Most importantly, Emily remembered the adults. So Emily began drawing everything she saw. The rooms, the doctors, the locked doors, and the vehicles that arrived in the middle of the night. She even drew the children who disappeared. She wasn't making drawings, she was creating evidence. Then Adrian discovered a pattern. Every few months, children were taken away. The records called them transfers, but there were no receiving institutions, no signatures, nothing. They simply vanished. Emily was scheduled to leave with the final group, but the night before the transfer, everything changed. Emily escaped her room, and what she saw terrified her. They weren't preparing to move the children. They were preparing to seal the shelter permanently. Emily tried to warn the other children, but someone caught her. Years later, Adrian found the final recording. Emily's frightened voice returned to the darkness. If someone finds this, don't look for me. Then the recording went silent. Then Emily whispered 4 words that changed everything. Look for the others. Emily named the children one by one. There were 11 children, but only 6 had been accounted for. 5 children were still missing. Adrian followed the trail to an old transportation company. Most of its records had disappeared, but one document survived. It recorded a vehicle leaving town on the night the shelter was abandoned, and it carried 5 children. But there was no destination. Only a handwritten note remained. They were moved north. For the first time, Adrian believed the missing children might still be alive. Then his phone rang. It was Dr. Samuel Pierce. Pierce had found something inside Emily's original medical file. A fingerprint, not decades old. Someone had opened Emily's file recently. Someone alive still knew about the Nightingale Program. That night, Adrian returned to his office. Then his security monitor activated. At first, the hallway was empty. Then a figure appeared at the far end. He slowly walked toward the camera. Then he stopped. He raised a piece of paper. 4 words were written across it. I was subject 07. Then the screen went black. Adrian rushed downstairs, but there was nobody there. Only the piece of paper remained. On the back was an address. The address led Adrian to an abandoned house outside town. Inside, every room was empty. Then Adrian saw the walls. All 11 children were there. But beneath each photograph, someone had written a name. Emily's name was there. Then Adrian found subject 07. Then he found the final photograph, subject 11. The date on the photograph was before Adrian was born. For the first time, Adrian questioned his own memories. Then he heard something behind him. A voice came from the darkness. You finally found us. It was subject 07. Subject 07 finally told Adrian the truth. Emily wasn't simply forgotten. She was made to disappear. The children had been erased because they were witnesses. Subject 07 had survived, and he knew what Emily had discovered before she disappeared. Adrian asked him one question. What were they going to do next? Subject 07 looked toward the window. Then he said something Adrian would never forget. They weren't trying to erase the children. They were trying to erase the memories. The program wasn't only about hiding children. It was about controlling what they remembered. And suddenly Emily's drawings made sense. Then headlights appeared outside. Subject 07 went pale. They found us. Adrian turned toward the window. Then the headlights disappeared. When Adrian turned back, Subject 07 was gone. But something had been left behind. It showed the original 11 children. But this time, someone else was standing behind them. Someone had drawn a red circle around the adult. The face had been scratched away. Adrian turned the photograph over. There was one final message. The doctor is still alive. Adrian stared at the words. For years, Adrian had believed he was investigating something that happened in the past. But now he understood. This wasn't an old case. Someone had protected the Nightingale Program for decades. And someone had been watching Adrian from the moment he opened Emily's file. But one question frightened him more than anything else. Why did his name appear in a photograph taken before he was born? And if the doctor was still alive, then the Nightingale Program had never really ended. It was only waiting for its next subject. Adrian looked toward the doorway. There was no one there. Then Adrian heard a sound. For one moment he thought it was Emily, but there was nobody there. Only the photograph remained in Adrian's hand. 11 children had been hidden. 5 had vanished. 1 had survived, and Emily had left behind the clues that could expose them all. But now Adrian had become part of the mystery, because someone had recorded his name before he was even born. And somewhere out there, the doctor was still alive. Adrian thought he had uncovered the end of the Nightingale Program. Instead, he had uncovered its beginning. And somewhere in the darkness, someone already knew he was coming.